Locked On Rockies. So far, the month of November's been pretty good for Colorado sports fans. Can the Colorado Rockies be a part of what feels like a golden age of Colorado sports?
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 18th day of November in the year 2025. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, then guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do around here each and every day, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services and on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show. You can fire off your Rockies hot takes. You can let me know what's on your mind when it comes to the Colorado Rockies. Today on the show, wanted to dive into something that's kind of a little bit more of an interesting topic. Kind of one of these bigger picture things is, unfortunately, as of recording this, I think the Nuggets are losing right now. But Colorado sports teams in the month of November, undefeated. And the Nuggets, as of recording, technically the game is not over. Fourth quarter just starting. So if it's a big fourth quarter for the Nuggets, maybe they end up and keep the streak alive. And I was curious if there is any way that we could look at this and kind of compare it to the Rockies. Of course, they're not playing basketball. Of course, they're not playing basketball. They're not playing right now in November. The season's over. How can we compare it? But I think when we think about this, the only missing piece for what could be an absolutely insane era of professional men's sports in Colorado is the Colorado Rockies. And I think that some of the storylines and some of the things that we've seen of the other teams, the three major men's sports that I'm mentioning, of course, there's other sports too, but specifically focusing on kind of the big dogs here, especially when you kind of look at each one of them having in ways things that you can piece from and look at, right? For example, the Broncos 2 years ago, where were they? Saddled by a huge contract, issues with, there was all sorts of stuff happening with the ownership. There was change at the top of the organization. And now look where it is. Of course, championships are always going to be the things, but you can't sit here and argue that this is not a very, very impressive time for Colorado and Colorado sports. Let's dive into this, as well as your comments from the Optimism episode on Monday. That's all coming up on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we go any further, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Of course, I am your Rockies fan extraordinaire, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanking you for making us the number one sports podcast network. Shout-outs to all of you. Shout-outs to the everydayers. Shout-outs to all the Rockies fans still locked and loaded here, wanting that Rockies coverage throughout the offseason. That is plenty of you everydayers out there. So shout-outs to you out there, the listeners and the fans of the Locked On Rockies podcast. So, yeah, the Nuggets undefeated in November. The Avalanche undefeated in November. The Broncos undefeated in November. All really awesome. I mean, and what has continued to be a stretch of, again, championships. If championships are your only thing of success, if that is the only defining thing, yes, the Rockies are lacking there outside of the Cup and the NBA championship. That's not even lacking that much. The past 5 years really have been a really interesting spot of Colorado sports, as we've seen the Broncos go through a dramatic transformation. We've seen the Nuggets navigate, their transition and everything and winning a championship, and then what it takes to get back there and what's at stake there. And same with the Avalanche to an extent as well, as the Avalanche were, also dealt with big time injury and just that fight there. So I kind of wanted to, think of these and see if the Rockies can kind of take some and how to apply this. And I think it's kind of it's a little more difficult to apply it to, say, the Nuggets or the Avalanche, because the Avalanche have kind of just, they've been able to navigate, ups and downs, and they've built a team with really, really solid talent and have built a roster there through their, trades, signings, their own development system as well. And those down years that they had a few years ago, they were able to navigate a rebuild into being a successful team. And the Avalanche themselves, at least like when I think about the perennial contender, the team that has been kind of in the mix the most of my life, the Broncos certainly a case, but the Avalanche have also been there as well with the multiple cups and being a playoff team. So I think the Rockies aren't at a point where you can kind of start looking at the Nuggets and the Avalanche where they're at to kind of navigate like, oh, these are champions. These are teams that are champions. Now they're trying to do it again. They're trying to replicate. They're trying to maximize on a window. But one of the things that I think that you can take away from, and one of the things that if you are the Rockies, if it is able to be a transitive property 1-to-1, is look at how they were able to navigate the rebound, how they were able to take being really bad, what really didn't work, and what they were trying to maximize. Look into the data and the numbers there, and look into how they attacked the free agency and attacked the development and attacked those plans. Obviously different sports, but maybe there's just at least get some ideas. There's a lot of good sports management. There's a lot of good sports business being done in the state of Colorado right now, and it would be really great for the Rockies to pick some brains. And this isn't the first time I've talked about this. But I think the Rockies, when you're kind of looking for a team that to kind of do this comparison with, and for a team where the Broncos or the Rockies can look at and say, hey, they took it on the chin, they made drastic moves, and now look at where they're at. And it's the Broncos. 5 years of, this is a team that hasn't made the playoffs until last year and since the Super Bowl, reaching the highest of the high and then not being able to recreate and refill for that legendary guy, that Hall of Famer. They couldn't replace the Hall of Famer in Peyton Manning at quarterback. And they went down this long stretch of not being able to recreate that, not be able to fill that position, fill that leadership, and create a team around those guys to take them to the next level. Obviously, Todd Helton in first base is a different thing, but that's kind of one of the things there. Legendary player. I know Peyton Manning's legacy with the Colts before, and the Broncos was kind of a really good, a shorter period of time, but became a Broncos legend and a player that the Broncos really struggled, and depending on who you ask, still struggled with filling, because how do you replace a Hall of Famer? The Rockies have been facing that as with the revolving door at first base. And they haven't been able to build that team, a starting rotation, a team around that to help them get around their weaknesses. But I think obviously that's kind of a more of a stretch comparison than really this one of new ownership, new philosophy comes into the organization, new mindset, and a lot of change happens within the Broncos organization, right? All of the people that after the sale, when the Waltons and everything come in, there is a lot of things that happen differently. And it still took some, they still, and then when they inherited this, right, and when they brought this on, they had to figure out the Russell. If my memory is correct, please correct me if I'm wrong. But player on a big contract that's taken up a big chunk of money and what are you going to do? The performance isn't there. How do you do this? Well, the Broncos ate the money. The Broncos took it on the chin. The Broncos went and, did what they had to do in order to start moving on and start getting to that next step in order to get to Bo Nix, right? They had to open that door, and they had to take a hit of cap money and take a hit for the Russell Wilson deal and move on. The Rockies are facing a very similar situation here when you're talking about the Chris Bryant deal. This decision is going to have to be made sooner rather than later, I think, in terms of the prep here. We can't be sitting here and really even counting on Chris Bryant being a factor for this team. I mean, and eventually you're just going to have to swallow the tough pill of the Chris Bryant deal. And you're going to have to figure out what that means for you financially. And in reality, you need to tackle that sooner rather than later. And you need to tackle it now so you can clear out and set the stage for you to be in a better spot down the line, which you can point at and say that's what the Broncos have been doing, paving the way to clear up that money and clear up that space. Again, the highest paid player on the Rockies by a long shot next year will be Chris Bryant. So they have to be able to figure out what they're going to do with that contract. They're going to have to figure out what they're going to do because we've heard Chris Bryant's off seasons have been great. And with it being this quiet and with the last update not being that good, the writing is on the wall here for them to make a tough decision here. And again, it stinks for it stinks overall. But that will be a tough business decision that has to be made. Kind of similar to how the Broncos had to do. And then kind of my cherry on top here of this comparison between specifically the Rockies and the Broncos is, and this can be applied to the Nuggets, it can be applied to the Avalanche, it can be applied to the teams that have been successful, because you can apply this to the other teams that have led to championships in Colorado. Eventually, they looked at what they were doing and they said it wasn't working. The philosophy, the organization, the people doing it, the execution, whatever it might be. They made a change, and the change has been successful. The Broncos, of course, would still like a Super Bowl here, but we're still talking about a Super Bowl in the last 20 years, something that's very difficult to do. And the Broncos now sitting at, when we're talking 2 years ago, 3 years ago, navigating where they were at, being the middling team, dealing with Russell Wilson, dealing with a team that didn't have much of an identity, didn't have wasn't strong necessarily, had great strengths anywhere, to turn it into a team that's now at the top of the division, top of the AFC, 9-2, been playing close, and have a defense that's playing at a level that is insane. I say all this because with all the change coming to the Rockies, hopefully, it will usher in the next, it will be the change that happened when the Nuggets made their philosophy change to really buy into Jokic, to buy into Jamal Murray, and go out here and really dive it. Change it up to let's do this. Let's go all in here. Let's make these moves. Same with the Avalanche. How do we recreate? How do we get back? How do we continue our championship pedigree? The ideas change. You got to be open-minded and you got to embrace it. So here's hoping that the massive seismic change that the Rockies are seeing, which again, it is big. There's a lot of new names. There's a lot of new there are a lot of new positions. There are a lot of people that the Rockies are moving on from. Let's hope that this change can help them be a part of this golden era of Colorado sports. Do they have enough time to make it, though? That's a different question. Before we move on, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get on the action other than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Hopefully, the Nuggets, like we were saying, fourth quarter comeback, and you could be seeing all the action, getting in on the action at FanDuel and FanDuel.com. You can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com to sign up. Play that first $5 bet, and when it wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets when you play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Locked on Rockies here, back with you for segment number 2 of today's episode. We're just talking about how a lot of the teams in Colorado have seen, or at least the major men's ones, the 4 major men's ones, have seen a lot of change. And through that change, that's created great opportunities for them. And who knows where the Broncos season will end and what that'll lead to. But they're creating opportunities for them. And the Rockies are, hopefully, through their changes, will be creating their next wave of opportunities and such. So let me know what you think. Am I stretching? Am I pulling too far here on this off-season pod? Is it crazy to think that, hey, we've seen the other professional sports teams undergo change, undergo transition, and and through that transition, it's led to success. It's led to them being a team that wins. I mean, again, I know championships are the ultimate thing, but the Rockies, the Nuggets, the Avalanche, the Broncos now for the past couple of seasons have been winners. That's where the Rockies need to get to as well. Before the Rockies can even have their sights set on the championship and be focused there, they got to get back to being winners and then create a winning culture in there, because a winning culture is the standard for these other teams. The Rockies don't have that same legacy. And I think really the Nuggets kind of for a long time were pretty run-of-the-mill and kind of in the same vein there. But the Broncos and the Avalanche are multi-time throughout different generations, different eras. They are multi-time champions. Winning is an expectation with those teams. The Broncos always have expectations. And really the Avalanche seem to be always have that there. I'm not as plugged into hockey as I am, but I know about the Avalanche because of their reputation of winning, because of the standard that the Avalanche have set as, we are a team that wins. We are a team that competes. And if we need to rebuild, if we need to retool, because they were the worst team in hockey for a season or two. I believe that's how they ended up with Makar. Was it Makar or McKinnon? How they got those guys on the team. Again, please correct me if I'm wrong. But winning the cup isn't a pipe dream for the Avalanche. It is an expectation that they have because they've done it, and they've done it multiple times. Winning a Super Bowl is an expectation for the Broncos because they've done it before, and they've done it multiple times. The Nuggets are in a season right now where the expectation is championship. I mean that is just a massive gap in between where the Rockies are at here, where we're talking about just being competitive. But again, I think that this off season and with all this change, this is the moment to start the change, and hopefully in 3 years down the line, we're talking about all of the teams still being in a great spot, and the Rockies being the one that's the rocket ship of excitement to build up on maybe the back end of Nikola Jokic's career, or wherever the Nuggets are at there, or wherever the core of the Avalanche is at by that stretch. That will be the moment where the Rockies can be the finale of what is a golden era of Colorado sports, and be the one that kind of can take advantage of maybe, waning interest or worry or anything about that. They can be the next young, exciting, hot team that takes over and really boosts and really gives that energy and really ignites that passion for the fans throughout the region. Because has there ever been a better time to be a Nuggets fan? No. I mean, Broncos and Avalanche, I think it probably depends on how old you were and when you grew up, because there's probably a lot of young Avalanche fans, specifically. Broncos, a different story, absolutely. But there's the Avs. You got the 2000s Avs. You got you got this version of the Avs. You making the Rockies relevant during an exciting time for Colorado sports would be so huge for them and for the Rockies to build up the Rockies fandom. I just don't think the timelines are gonna match up. I think that there's too much work, there's too much hesitation, there's too many things that the Rockies need to change and do. And there's too much variance in those other sports to really get that combo of like, holy cow, all four major men's sports teams are firing on the same cylinders. I mean, and it's very rare for that to happen. We've seen it with, Boston is kind of the main example I can think of, at least in there, where it's just like, holy cow, there literally was a moment where Boston was in just about every single finals for just about every sport. And that does wonders. It really does wonders for the culture. It does wonders for the sports culture of the city, the identity, and would be huge for the Rockies to be able to capitalize on more eyeballs being on sports in the region, to be like, hey, here come the Rockies. Here comes this team that's exciting and unique and fun. And I hope that we're reflecting on that in a few years down the line. Because really, at the end of the day, my main point with all of this is, my main point through this comparison is the Broncos, Avalanche, and Nuggets, through transition, through a lot of work, through tough decisions, through bad contracts, through injuries, through whatever, have created success, have built success. This is the time for the Rockies to build and join that club. And if they do, Colorado or Denver, I guess about wherever you look at the names, will be one of the best sports cities in the country. If the Colorado Rockies establish the culture of winning baseball, it will be an area where pro sports thrive, and you can't ignore Colorado in the conversation. Altitude be damned. All right, let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know if I'm off base. Let me know if you agree with me. Let me know what's on your mind in the Locked On Rockies YouTube comment section. We're going to take a break, and we're going to read some of your comments about being optimistic Rockies fans coming up next. Back at it here for segment number 3 of today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day, and thank you for making us the #1 sports podcast network. Shout-outs to all of our everydayers out there. Shout-outs to all of you tuning in to Locked On Rockies throughout the offseason. Keep your questions, keep your comments firing off. Let me know what's on your mind, folks. I want to know what you're thinking about here as the season continues, or the offseason continues here. So, the question yesterday was, should Colorado Rockies fans have more optimism? And we heard from a lot of you. Thank you again so much for joining here. Alan says, glad you were talking about some positives. Change is coming, good or bad. Good change or bad change, we will see. Yep, that's true. As much as I have my hesitations, as much as I have my concerns, at the end of the day, that's where we're at right now, right? Can't judge the future without going through it, right? Jim says, you have to be cautious about the Colorado Rockies. I believe that the vast majority of fans or those who were fans want to see positive change and hope to have a championship team here in Colorado. But as you've said in the past, the ownership has told us multiple times we have this thing, things are going to get better, or hang in there, things are going to get better. And each time they've let us down. So even though I've tried to be positive, and I believe you have tried hard to be positive, Paul, the past has been like the boy who cried wolf. And after a while, people just get tired of hearing it. So even though we want to see things get better, you have to be cautious about your optimism. I believe that most fans will agree with this. Yeah, because again, as if you're down on the optimism, or if you're down on the doom and gloom attitude, it's earned. The doom and gloom attitude is earned. As much work as we were just talking about in the first 2 segments, this team's reputation has, and especially in terms of proving it to the fans, has a lot of work to be done. Shouldn't say that it won't happen, but having a doubt, being cautious, that's where we're at. And I appreciate Jim always tuning in here and letting me know what's on his mind there. Luis says, between you and me, Paul, I'm more cautiously optimistic than doomer. I've never been in the camp of sell the team, but more in the camp of do better. It seems, to me at least, that the leadership and ownership aren't happy about the state of the team either. They're making changes and going in a new direction. How that goes is my cautious side, but I'm still anticipating where this goes. Rockies 2026 World Series champions. Yeah, again, with all the change, with all the turnover, with all of this, it opens up the door to a bunch of opportunity, a bunch of possibility. We're just unfortunately conditioned as Rockies fans that they won't take advantage of the opportunity. They'll squander the opportunity. They won't actually fully buy in. Signs and early press conferences have said that won't be the case, but we'll have to see when it actually all pans out. Ark says, yeah, you almost have to have some optimism because at least something is changing, which hasn't happened for years, and they can hardly do any worse than they did this year. The Broncos, Avalanche, and Nuggets are all at or near the top of their respective leagues. It's time for the Rockies to stop dragging down the curve. I'm with you. And just imagine for the Colorado sports fan what it would be for the Rockies to be that next exciting team. The buzz would be amazing. I mean, to go from a Nuggets postseason, an Avalanche postseason run into a fun baseball season with the buzz of a good Broncos team, taking you into this through the summer, and then postseason baseball one day for the Rockies and doesn't get much better than that for the sports fan. Let's see here. Christian says, I wish the Rockies would start dominating the NL West. Tired of seeing the Dodgers at the top here. I've been a lifelong Mariners fan and also cheer the Rockies. Love the underdog teams. You're certainly rooting for the underdogs, my friends. Not so much with the Mariners. That one's panning out a little bit here, but Rockies dominating the National League West is a long ways away. And then here is what Gas says there about to answer the question, should Rockies fans have more optimism? No. Next question. Got the laughing face from Lux Ace, and John says, here. Hey, I ain't going to blame you for that answer either. I'm still very much in the prove it. Prove me wrong category. Prove us all wrong. Demonstrate it. Execute the change. Execute the new vision before I'm going to buy into any sort of big time optimism or something that's going to make me completely change my attitude or my mindset about where the Rockies are at. I just needed to, as some would say, we do need to acknowledge the opportunity. And that's what we've done. But in terms of being super optimistic, in terms of me sitting here and saying all this change is going to be for the better, I'm not there yet. And I don't think that's that far out of line. And I don't think a lot of Rockies fans are that far off either. Or at least the ones that I know. All right, let me know what you thought of here. Let me know, too, about the optimism. Let me know what you think of the comparison of the Rockies to the other Colorado sports teams. And let me know what you want to discuss here on the Locked On Rockies podcast by firing off your comments in the Locked On Rockies YouTube comment section. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen of the day, go check out Locked On MLB and Locked On MLB Game Nights. And if you need more Colorado sports coverage, we got you covered with Locked On Broncos, Avalanche, Nuggets, and Buffs. Folks, until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.